Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready.
What is going on, everybody? We're back today for another episode. Everyone knows the amazing Denny Jahnz. What's going on, Denny?
Just hanging out at home today.
Nice. Been getting a lot of questions, myself personally, about the transition of owning your own business, sold it, went to the corporate world, and I know you've done the same thing. Here. You're about a year in, aren't you now?
Just a little over a year, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the last time we talked, it wasn't, I think it was behind the scenes. Nothing was official yet.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
Yeah, I know you guys were talking for a while, but I don't think anything was official until after. But just kind of wanted to chat through that and see what you think and, see how life's treating you, not being the man in charge, and how much, I'll say this, how much less stress there is, but could be a different kind of stress, but overall, I would say less stress when you're not the one making the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I did actually go for a checkup a couple months ago, and my blood pressure is lower than it's been in a long time. So I think that's probably reflective of a little bit of that, right? So
I mean, yeah, I could see that. My wife was just the other day, we were talking about something because I've got a couple other businesses that I run besides the podcast and stuff. I don't know if the podcast is necessarily a business. It's still, floating on that line of business and hobby.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
conceptual, right?
There you go. I like that. Conceptual. She was asking, she said, because we're actually moving to Colorado in December. She was like, do you think you would start another painting company? And I'm just like, I just don't know if I want that stress. Just the deadlines, the schedules, people want to know where their stuff is. I need this, I need that. I'm just like, man, I just think there's other businesses out there that are a lot less stressful that I would go that route.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a little more, how should I say, it's a little more condensed, right? Because like when you own your own business, for instance, and you're running a job, and that job gets done, usually you're working in customers' houses or whatever. And so oftentimes they get home at the end of the day, which is when you're done and everybody else is done. And that's when the phone calls come in, right? Just checking on this, just checking on that, just, concern, whatever. I have a question on this, whatever. And that could be, that could be Friday night at 7:00, or it could be Saturday morning, or it could be Sunday after church, or whatever time, that stuff happens. Whereas, with the position that I have now, pretty much everybody that I deal with, as far as like vendors and distributors and that kind of stuff, they run regular business hours and they're not open on Sundays, So, I mean, I don't get the phone calls at the times of the day on those kind of topics that I do, I mean, other than that, it's pretty lateral, right? Because I mean, you're still serving people. You're still doing everything you can to have them use your products, whether I'm making them or whether I'm selling them. You're just doing the best job you can do to introduce the product line to the customers and get them to buy as many as possible. That's kind of the goal with any of it. So, but yeah, like I said, the timing thing is definitely a little bit better because we're not getting phone calls at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night very often. We still do get it. I've been helping people. I've been helping people for a long time, on just things, so I'm still getting all the things from people about, why do I got bubbles in my finish and stuff like that, which that's awesome to be able to get that communication with people and try to put them through stuff. And so, yeah, there is still that, but it's anything from a customer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still over a year out of the corporate world, and then almost 5 years out of owning a painting business. And I still, same thing. I still get the random guys who are like, hey, Zach, check this out. What do you think? Can I do this? Can I do that? How's it going to fix this? I mean, I don't think when you get into the world that we're in and people know that your name comes with solutions. That's just inevitable. You're going to get that forever, but you can mitigate it a lot by not being the boss
You can.
man. I mean, that definitely
Absolutely.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I had my company, I would all the time, about a year in, I think it's about a year in, I got very strict on estimates and doing appointments. And I know it's hard when you're starting out, but setting those boundaries, like I wouldn't do an estimate past 3, and I wouldn't do them on the weekends, and people be like, well, you're a painter. And I'm like, so do you call your dentist to go to the dentist at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock on a Friday night or at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning? No, this is a business. It's a job.
Yeah. I got into the working world working in the restaurant business. So, with that, first 10 years of my life, there was no such thing as holidays or New Year's Eve or, whatever, nights, weekends, holidays. So I probably got started off in a different scenario with boundaries that were not there for, a lot of normal people, so to speak. So
Yeah.
it's probably still carried through, it's all that thing about customer service. So, and I guess the other side of the coin also is, as much as I tried to do appointments during the day when I could, I also had my company to run, and I had things that were happening there. And if I'm running out somewhere else, then I'm not there with the people in the shop either. So I guess it's kind of that thing where sometimes you sacrifice, and it is a sacrifice to do that. And I think a lot of the employees don't really understand that. And I think a lot of the customers don't understand that either. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a small business owner, you got a lot of shoes, there are a lot of hats that you're wearing, so to speak. So there are a lot of sacrifices that come with that sort of thing in a business, right? Would I rather stay home tonight and do whatever? Absolutely. But if I don't do this one, then are my people going to get a job that they're going to be able to do, and that kind of stuff. So it's a thing that small businesses always have to deal with, right?
Yeah, it's as a business owner, you always have to find that balance. Do you, have someone run the shop? Like mine was, I only did estimates on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and my guys knew it. I checked on the crews if I could, but Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was stacked from like 9 a.m. until 3, just estimate after estimate after estimate. 2 days a week. That was for 10 years, that was my schedule. It was always my estimate days. My guys knew it. They could call me, but probably wasn't going to make it by the job today because I'm making sure we keep working. But it's just finding those, it's what I tell guys all the time that I'm talking to that are asking for help. It's just finding that balance. You have to. If you don't, you're going to get burnout, and you've got to set the boundaries and find the balance somewhere in that world.
That brings up a great question. Because I hear this a lot. Talk to me about what you think burnout is. What do you consider to be burnout? Because I hear this a lot. I mean, I'm kind of an old shit, according to a lot of the people in here. But I've been running this stuff for a really long time, and even like I said, going back to the fast food days when we used to run like 28 out of 30 days a month without, you'd maybe have like a day or two a month off when I first started the business, and double shifts and whatever else. And I mean, my whole life has been just like this. And, even now I still do a lot of traveling, and I'm still gone an awful lot, and whatnot. So I never really personally knew what burnout was or whatever, but I hear this a lot. What do you think burnout is?
So like in my opinion, I would call burnout, to me, the signs of burnout are, when you wake up, everyone goes through that phase where you wake up and you don't want to go to work. I mean, that's just life. Get over it. But when you continually dread what you're doing, I think you're approaching burnout. And for some people, it goes different. Like I went through a phase when I had my business that was just stressful, and I started to get burnt out, and I didn't notice it until after the fact, but my wife did. It was, and what she said was, usually you come home, we talk about our day over dinner, after the kids go to bed, we're talking about, estimates, things like that. And she's like, you just shut down. You didn't talk. Like, didn't come home and say, hey, we did some estimates today, or finish this job up, or check this out. The guys did something really cool. I did it. It just kind of got quiet.
Yeah. So maybe like losing your love for the craft that you have or for
Yeah.
what you're doing is what you're kind of saying. Yeah. And I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of, and that's what my wife said that I did. I just got quiet. I didn't talk to her about work stuff going on, whether it was, and you're a business owner, and granted, my wife was in the corporate world. Like, we're still a partnership, and I think I kind of forgot that. Still a partnership, business finances, how things are going, invoices coming in, bills going out. You just kind of shut down because of the stress of it. You don't want to deal with it, and it can happen. But you got to find someone. That's what I tell guys. You got to find someone to talk to. If it's not your wife, let her know that you're just stressed out, or your partner, whoever that may be. But, don't just shut everyone out. Because I think as guys, we do that a lot.
Yeah, that is an important point. I think, especially with men, we kind of internalize and compartmentalize stuff like that. And we just do kind of hold it in because we feel that we're like holding, a lot, at least I think traditionally with men, we feel like we're holding the responsibility, and we accept that and whatever. We don't know when we're having trouble with it. We don't probably know exactly how to express that fact. And it may look like, yeah, like we're disinterested or something like that, but that's not the case. We're just trying to figure out like how we're going to hold all this thing together, right? Yes, and not have it unravel.
Exactly. We're just trying to figure it, trying to build a roadmap in our head when it's like, well, just ask for some help, whether it's your partner. Hey, struggling
we got
with
this big spring. We got this big spring. We're holding it together. We're just trying to figure out how to not let go and let it all uncoil on us, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of. Yeah, I mean that was me. And then once you kind of, to me, what I found was once you realize it, either get called out one way or the other, like, hey, what the hell's going on in your head? Like you're just gone, and you realize it. You can reignite the fire and the passion that you have for the business, but just kind of letting that spring go a little bit and let someone help you, because that was the hardest thing for me as a business owner. And it took me a long time to figure it out was shit. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Like some of the smartest guys in the world, like they surround themselves with smarter people.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Once I started leaning on my foreman to help me go check stuff, or, to work on sample, whatever it may be, I sent him on a couple estimates, started him going to run the crews. He still had a job site, but he went and checked on all the crews. So I didn't have to, and started alleviating some of that. And then you're like, okay, this is why I do this. I really do like it. But like, if you've got employees, you got to use them, don't just think that they're guys that are just going to roll paint on the walls. Like, utilize them, find someone that has a passion for you do, and bring them on board. I think that was huge for me.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So let's kind of jump into the SurfPrep, man. I mean, everybody's always, I'm sure you've gotten a million questions when you made that jump of why, so how's it going at SurfPrep? What do you think on being on the OEM, or we'll call it the manufacturer side? I mean, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really good, right? I mean, with anything, there's challenges one way or the other, and this is a small company, so things are a little bit more dynamic. It's not like you're walking into a rigid, structured environment where everything is predetermined already, because they're small, But that also gives you flexibility that you don't have, if you have a very, how should I say, regimented corporate structure. And I've been in that too. So I've worked under those scenarios too in the past. And I understand how that works and how that can be limiting too. So it's a nice balance, just as a company. SurfPrep is a product, obviously, that I started using long before I knew them. So the one thing is that I can go in with honesty and tell anybody that, I was a believer in the products a long time before I ever knew the people. And once I got to know the people behind the company, it only reinforced and solidified, what I thought of the company rather than the other way. So this is kind of a really good, like, just built-in thing for me that made it really very easy, right? And that's great. And, and everybody in the company is very They're very caring and very understanding, very supportive. So it's really good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Skylar and Mary are always awesome people. I mean,
Oh
since
yeah.
I started getting to know them, they're just, I mean, just an amazing couple that really has that passion, like you said, to serve. Doesn't matter that the industry, but man, they have it to their bones.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you get to see what's in their heart, and you know that is kind of shown every day that you're at work. So that's always a really good thing, right? So, and good products. You know, the products. The one thing about me is like I couldn't go to work for a company that didn't have good products, because I'm not a, how should I say it? And I think people that know me and have known me in the industry have kind of known that I don't say things that aren't true. And if I don't believe it, I'm not going to say it. So like, if I don't believe in something, even if I'm getting paid, I'm not going to say this is good if I don't think it is. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like not sacrificing your core values for a buck. I mean, that's essentially, you know, I believe what I believe. And if I don't believe in it, I can't sell it.
Right. And that's one of those things, even before when I had my business, you know, there was always opportunities where, you know, people would come to you and say, we'll pay you to do this or pay you to do that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to take money for that. Like, if I like your stuff, I'm going to talk about your stuff and say good things about your stuff because your stuff is good. If you start paying me, you know, to talk about your stuff, then that's a whole different situation, because it kind of ties me in to not saying something if I don't like it, you know? So, and with SurfPrep, I mean, honestly, I would be the same way. Like, if I didn't care for their products, I wouldn't be working for them, you know?
I mean, that makes sense.
That's just simple. That's just simply the way it is. You know, the good thing about working for them now is I've been able to work with their products in ways that I never could before. And especially now, like getting my garage set up, you've been seeing more videos, you know, of me out in the garage trying stuff, and I get to actually get in there and try it. And I'm actually finding even ways that are better than I ever thought they were, you know, for using these products, which is kind of cool, because now I get paid to go and take this information and give it to other people, right? And
I think that was one of my favorite things about being on the manufacturer side is, you know, you're always playing with stuff. I mean, you and I seem very similar in that way. You're tinkering with products. Can I do this? Can I do that? But the end result was always for a project.
Yes.
Now, and then like when I was in the corporate world, it was, you know, all right, Zach, take this, push it to its limits. There's no project. See how far it goes until it breaks. And then let me know what happens when it breaks. Let's just, how many mils can you put on and it still hang? You know, how much can you reduce it to where it doesn't start separate? I mean, it was just push it, push it, push it. And to me, that was fun. I mean, just to push everything to the limits. And that may go back to the drawing board, or you may be like, damn, this thing got pushed pretty hard. I think it's, you know, let's start beta testing it, you know, stuff like that. So that was the fun part to me, is getting able to push the products to the absolute limits. And then when you go out to demo them, you know exactly how far you can go before you're in front of like 10 people and something doesn't work.
Yeah. No, we're cut from the same cloth there. I'm the exact same way. Like, I'm going to push everything right to the absolute limit and see where we go before something bad happens, you know, and that's good.
I remember a product we were doing, messing with for an OEM, and it was like it was a metal product, and it was like, all right, push it. I mean, run it through all the equipment, see what, you know, max mils we can put on, because it was a vertical hang product. And I mean, it was like a flash of a couple minutes in between because it was a solvent product. But I think I built it up to like, without failure and mud cracking, we ended up at like 36 mils or something. It was ridiculous before it started mud cracking and stuff on. But, you know, and I'm like, all right, that's impressive. Like, you know what you can do in the field when you start pushing those coatings, then, you know, and you're not on a deadline for a job. It's just go screw it up.
Yeah. It is. You know, like I said, with this whole sanding thing now, and that's a little bit different. You know, obviously most people know me for the coating side of it and not necessarily the sanding side of it. And that's where my focus has been. But getting on the sanding part of it has been kind of really eye-opening too, because I've been learning so many things that I wish I would have known when I was running my own business, honestly, you know, about things I can do, you know. And you know, I'm always a competitive guy. So I'm going into these shops now, and you know, the shops sometimes aren't impressed or don't really sometimes you don't even know if they want you there or whatever, right? And I'm just like, I'm just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go in here. I'm going to look at your process. I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to save you time and save you money. And if I can do that, I'm going to prove it to you by clocking your time against my time. And we'll see exactly whether it pays off for you or not. If it does, then it's great. I ask you to buy our products. If not, I don't want you buying our products. And that's kind of the approach I take. And it's worked out pretty good for me. I've been, at least marginally successful at finding ways to save people time in their process. And that's been good.
That's awesome. And then I remember that same exact mindset after like the first 3 months when I was in the coatings. I was like learning how the paint's made, everything that goes inside the paint, which stuff where you're like, that's in paint. Like my prime example is every water-based coating in the industry has silicone in it. And we're always taught in the world, silicone and paint don't mix. But every gallon, the manufacturing process, there's silicone in every water-based coating. It's a forced compatibility. But when you start learning how the paint's made, I was the same way. I was like, oh man, I'm ready to go mess some stuff up if I ever do this again. Like I'm to the dangerous point.
Exactly.
I can see that being the fun same thing about, and I'm sure with SurfPrep, and if you can share any of it, love like an instance where you're like similar to that, where you're like, I didn't know that this is how some sandpaper's made. Like, have you learned anything unique?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, and even though I'm kind of an old timer now, I strongly have always believed in learning and understanding stuff, and that's kind of why I'm like I am, is because I keep like diving into anything as deep as I can. So after going to work for SurfPrep, now I'm just doing everything I can to find out the different types of abrasives and the different kind of backings and the different kinds of adhesives and stuff used in the industry. So yeah, I've been pushing that pretty hard. And for me, I'm always an innovator. At least I try to be, at least as much as I can. And I don't ever feel like I'm bound to tradition or anything like that. So I'll throw all kinds of ideas out there, no matter how crazy they are. I usually try to have some kind of factual basis behind them, but I always want to look at what nobody else is doing and what how you can attack the market in ways that no people are currently, right? And I've always kind of been that way. So I've kind of been on that kick with foam lately. So foam is something that SurfPrep brought to the market in the first place, right? That 1-inch foam block that everybody sells, that was invented by Dixon Abrasives back in the 70s. And so we've always been like the pioneers, and Skylar, he's a visionary guy too, and he's the first one that really brought the whole abrasive on a 3x4 sander thing to the market, and that basically created kind of a mini revolution in its own. And the more you use that stuff, the more you understand how should I say it? How dramatic of a transformation that can be, and how much of a difference maker it is, right? And and every time I work with the foam stuff, I find ways that you can do stuff differently. So now in the back of my mind, I'm always like, okay, we do this and we do this, and now my mind is like, all right, what other ways have we not thought about that we can utilize this stuff in different ways and manners? And that's kind of where my mind goes to. So I'm always going to push the boundaries no matter what.
I like that.
The people that I work for, they're either going to adopt that and love me for it, or they're going to fire me for it one way or the other. It is what it is.
I used to always say, and Tom may still use it now, but my always preface was, and he learned pretty quick because he's good at reading people, great at reading people, was if I had an idea and I'm like, this is going to be a little out there, but I'm going to throw it against a wall and see what happens. I would always start with, hey, just spitballing here. But what if, and he knew if just spitballing here came out of my mouth, it was like, buckle up. Zach's got some crazy, stupid idea that he wants to try.
Yeah. Yep. It is. But I mean, those are the things that are revolutionary though, right? I mean, I just think back to like the mid 90s. I used to work for a kitchen tune-up franchise, and the whole thing that got me into this whole finishing thing was the company closed down, and I ended up starting my own business overnight, right? And then I was like, okay, I see this process that they're using with all these, like Mohawk and Balin touch-up products for furniture, and that's what they were using to make the cabinets look better. And I looked at it objectively, and I'm like, well, this is going to look good for maybe 6 months to a year, but if they really use this, it's going to degrade pretty quickly. So that's where I started my whole journey into the water-based world, trying to figure out like how to do this same process using water-based stuff, and I got really good at that and whatnot, and so now, flash forward to right now, I'm doing a lot of the same things, man. I'm just like, okay, let's get in there, let's try this, but it's a different process, because when I developed the other one, it was myself and my own business, working in my shop until nighttime. And now there's things like MOQs, there's things like minimum quantities you have to do. There's certain things you have to do in order to justify even bringing what you want to do to the marketplace. So now for me, a big part has been learning the people inside the company and learning what their part is in the whole process. And then from there, making sure that before I even think about anything or propose anything, you talk to people, you understand what kind of an undertaking it is before you even think about asking this, right? Because it's a big deal. You can't just, in a company like ours, you can't just say, hey, let's do this, because you've got all these people, you've got manufacturers involved, you've got your purchasing department involved, you've got retailers involved, and you've got to be able to make sure that whatever you do makes sense for everybody, not just for you. So it's a lot bigger thing to learn. But then again, once you get that done, if you can make it work, you got a lot better team behind you than just yourself. So
exactly. So yeah, it's like you have to learn. And I think that took me a bit, but once you learn, and it kind of comes with sales, but what makes people tick, how to get stuff done, even if it's what you want, you got to know to go from, hey, I said, this is what we're doing, to, okay, I need to learn what's going to be involved from purchasing, what's going to be involved from R&D, what's going to be involved from our suppliers, and make sure it works for everyone, or I have the skill set to get them on board with this idea before, and it definitely takes some juggling. I mean, you got to hone in your people skills, not just, hey, go finish those cabinets because I said so and I'm paying your check. And you kind of have to switch that around a little bit.
It is, yeah, definitely. You have to make sure that everybody understands that there's value in what you want to do, and you run into that. I'm kind of like, I call myself kind of like I just jokingly call myself like the black sheep of the family, or the redheaded stepchild of the family, because I do things a little bit differently than what Skylar, Mary, or Adam, or whatever they do. I come from a cabinetry business, so I kind of develop things over years, and that's why I do it. And it's usually based on the same things we talked about, right? Pushing everything, trying everything, testing it, make sure it works and stuff. So like a couple of things that I can think of off the top of my head, I'm always like a bigger sander whenever possible kind of a person. I've always been that way. So while like 85% of the industry is using 5-inch orbital sanders, I've been using 6-inch ones for probably 20 some years. And so, part of my thing when I go into a shop, if I walk in there, generally everybody's got, a 5-inch orbital. They're all 5-inch orbitals all over the shop, and they don't have 6. And so me going in there, if I'm going to go in there and try to sell them sanders, what's the likelihood I'm going to sell them a 5-inch sander when they've already got their full shop equipped with them? Probably not too good. But if I can take their 5-inch sander and put the 6-inch sander next to them and tell them to sand 2 identical products and time it, and tell me what the time period is, for them to sand with one versus the other. And if mine is faster, then that's something that I can, oftentimes create a sale out of, right? And create a user on. The same way as the running joke for me right now is that 3x7 sander. That's one that I never even knew that existed really when I had my own business. And then I get this case, and I open it up and it's got a 3x7 sander. And I'm looking at it and I pick it up and it fits pretty good in my hand. I'm like, where's this thing been? Like, I looked at that and I'm like, this literally could have saved me tens of thousands of dollars in my business if I would have known about this and had this. So I've been kind of making it my personal mission to get out there and sell these to people. But, every time we do it, we go out there and I'll do a time study here. Sand this with a 3x4, sand this with a 3x7. Let's time them. Let's see what the difference is. And you'd be surprised at the amount of time that you save and it's really with no extra effort. So any business that's looking to save money in the same time and get a better result, that's just, it's a no brainer. So anyways, I've been pushing that because it's been kind of like invisible in our company, but I've really been out there promoting it. And I'm not promoting it to be different, but I believe that it's better. And I'm kind of trying to do my best to show that it is. And at least it's not better at everything, but there's a lot of times when using this product over this one makes a lot of sense. And I guess that's kind of how I present it, right? It's not that you're replacing one. It's just a complementary. It's like you can have this one, which does an awesome job and it works great. But in these scenarios, take this one and you can do so much better. So
I remember another manufacturer, we won't mess with them, but they had a 4x6 when SurfPrep had the 3x4, and I had a 4x6. I think I had that 4x6 before I had any SurfPrep, because SurfPrep wasn't in Oklahoma, and this guy was, and my rep was actually in the same town, and he would come to my shop all the time and just let me play with different tools. But same thing with you. I was like, once I got my hands on that 4x6, I was like, this is so much faster for flat panels, and you've got long boards. Like, why are you guys promoting this? Well, it does pretty good in the automotive world, but woodworkers think they need the 3x4. And I'm like, this is so much faster, and just the cost is no different. Why not have one of these when you're doing big panels?
Yeah.
What's always been interesting to me in the sanding world, and I've noticed it here in the last couple of years, having people on the show and talking to them about processes and business, is, and tell me if you've noticed this too. I mean, you probably see a ton more of it, is you don't see a ton of guys that, I'm trying to think of the word, that incorporate both round and square or rectangle. It's either you're a round and hand guy, or you're a square and you think the round is crap, or you like round and you think the square is crap. And I'm like, you can use both, guys. It's okay. But a lot of guys get on these like Chevy Ford.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I've always kind of tried to be ambidextrous. And that's one of the things that I always, teach people when I go in there is I tell everybody, I look at everything from a macro micro standpoint. So like when I've got a vacuum, like for instance, the vacuum that SurfPrep has that I've had for a long time, they've got that dual user kit where you can hook two sanders up. And I tell them I'm always a macro micro guy. So I'm going to have an orbital, which in my case has always been a 6-inch, and a 3x4, because hey, when I had my business, I didn't know about this 3x7, or it would have been different, right? But I have this, this sander, and I have this one, and I always take a macro micro approach, and I tell everybody this is macro micro. When I look at a surface, I look at it, I say, okay, how much can I sand with this one because it's faster? And then when that one can't sand it, then I fill in with this one and do the rest of it, because that does, an orbital is always going to be faster. It's always going to do flat surfaces better. It's always going to do that stuff at a faster rate than a 3x4. But there's going to be a lot of things that the 3x4 can do, like profiles and inside corners and stuff that a 6-inch can't. So I just teach them all the time, macro, micro. And if you can set up both sanders on a vacuum and have them both working, that's just, you get the best of both worlds, man.
Yeah. And that's the other one that was like, I had my sanding station and I had two vacuums. I don't think SurfPreps was out at the time. But I had Ys on every one of them, 2 or 3 vacuums, and had Ys on them, and you had multiple lined up, and you had your sanding station. And I would always get, well, isn't that less efficient? I'm like, how is it less efficient? Like, what's less efficient about having multiple sanders? You've got different tools. You've got a gravity fed gun. You've got a AAA gun. Like,
yeah.
You could have multiple sanders.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So what's your territory? Are you going all over the U.S., or are you staying particularly up in the north, central northwest?
My territory is kind of like Metallica. It's like wherever I may roam, right? It's pretty much. So I started out. With SurfPrep as the Northeast Territory Manager. So basically, my territory was like North and South Dakota to the East Coast, and then, split Tennessee and Kentucky, and I got everything north of there is kind of what it was. And then, as we found out, with losing Austin like they did, and that was tragic, and you knew Austin, as much as I did. He's an amazing guy. And he was really the industrial rep, right, for the company. So Chad came in, and his focus, and I think his comfort level at that point was more on the retail side than it was in the industrial side. And he's changing all that now. But at that point, that's what it was. So we started out, we were really focusing on this retail stuff. And then as we started to see what was going on in the industrial world, they're like, well, our presence has not been there and we're starting to slip. And so they asked me to take over the industrial stuff in January or February. So there was, about probably 3-4 months where there's a transition where I was still doing like coming in and learning the industrial side and learning those accounts, and then, servicing also the retail accounts that we had. And there's still a little bit of that back and forth, but ultimately, now I've pretty much transitioned over to where I'm like 90% industrial accounts right now. So, our dividing line is we've got retail accounts and industrial accounts. So retail account, you don't have to have an account with that person at all. You can just walk in through the door, buy whatever you want to do or whatever. With our industrial reps, they generally will sign people up as an accountant. In order to buy from them, you have to be registered and have an account with them in order to do the purchase, right? So I'm more in the industrial side now than I am in the retail side. And so that's been good, I think, because that's probably more like my wheelhouse, being in cabinet shops and being around that kind of stuff is a little bit more, finishing shops and that kind of stuff. I've got a lot more experience there than I do, with a guy painting, the outside of house. I just don't have that depth of knowledge in that part of the industry. So I think my value is more here. But yeah, once I did that, then I basically got, the United States. I'll go up into Canada if needed to. So I go wherever. So Friday I fly out to California. Then my next week is going to be in the Boston area, and I come back to Indiana. So I get around. Just
jumping around. That is interesting though, because I kind of saw that same thing. And it's for smaller companies, it's I don't want to say hard. It can be difficult and very taxing when you have maintained your company for quite some time in the industrial realm. And then you want to get into the retail, the distribution realm. Like setting up the distribution realm is there's just no other way to explain it, but it's an ass whooping between like opening the accounts, servicing the accounts, making sure the products are displayed correctly, helping them display the products, going out with the individual reps and teaching them how to sell the products. Like it can be very taxing on a small business, but when your bread and butter is industrial, I mean, I saw the same thing. Industrial tends to slide back when you're building that. And it's like a fine balance. And like what I notice is the good part is once you get the retail going, the maintenance is less, because we all know industrial OEM accounts are way more needy than most of the retail accounts. There's direct, you don't have that buffer of the sales rep. So there's more that you have to be involved with. And there's also more competitors going after them than in the retail world. So it's like, it's a balance when you get into that, when you go to doing both, and it can wear you down for sure.
Well, yeah, retail is a thing where like the presence and the appearance of the products and where they are in the store and that kind of stuff is probably more important even than in a lot of cases than what their performance is, right? I mean, if you got a nice, pretty package and it's put in the right place in the store and people are walking by, they're probably going to buy it. Versus in an industrial situation, they've already got something that they're using, and it's a prove it kind of a thing where you got to come in there and show them that you're going to give them a benefit, or they're not going to buy your products. So they're just two different pairs of shoes, right? It's like going from your running shoes to your hunting boots. It's just they both have their own their purpose or whatever, but you just got to pick the right one for the right season.
And you need both of them, honestly, in my opinion. I think as a manufacturer, you need the OEM industrial and you need the distribution, because they serve different markets, and if you want the market share. But my wife's the same way. She'll tell you wholeheartedly, she's a very analytical person. She's finance. So it's black and white, it's numbers. She does that all day long for billion-dollar corporations, but she'll tell you, I'm a sucker for packaging. I'll buy on packaging alone, and it could be complete crap. But if that package is pretty, I'm going to buy it. And there's a lot of people out there like that. If you're in that retail world, packaging is important. You don't want to think that, but man, it'll bite you in the butt if it ain't pretty. You won't sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. And advertising too. I think advertising is important too. Retail takes a whole different advertising approach than it does in the industrial,
Yes, it does. 100%.
And those are the things we've been working really hard at fine tuning and figuring out, it is a new experience for us as a company. So I think we've done a good job. We've opened up a lot of retail accounts, and we've got a lot of people that are really happy to engage with our products. So I think it's been really successful.
Yeah. Seeing the growth over the last couple of years has been really awesome with SurfPrep. You guys have been doing really good. Hannah's doing great. I've been giving her crap because I want her to come on the show, and she's like, website. I'm like, quit using the website as an excuse. It's done. Get on.
Well, the website was, that was all encompassing for her. And it took everything that she had to get that going. And then just like anything, when you get a new thing and you're done, you sit back and you're like, good, now it's done. And then you have to go back and figure out all the things that are there that you didn't realize and didn't have the ability to foresee, and so then it takes a period of that too. I think she's done a really good job now, and I think it's pretty stable and pretty functional. But there's a lot of stuff built into that too that we're going to be incorporating into it as well too. So there's going to be the new website that we have is like miles better than the old one, but it's got so much more under the hood that can be done that the other one never could, that it's going to give us ability to branch into a lot of areas that we never would be able to before. So
give you a lot more data. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Well, let's, I want to take a quick break, use the restroom, refresh drinks. And when we come back, I didn't really mention this to you, but I kind of want to dig into AWFS. I want to get your take on the show size, and I want to kind of pick your brain about the robot. We had the episode with Skylar out there at the show talking about the sanding robot. So I kind of want to, I don't know how involved you are or if you've set any up, but I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, and then just kind of overall talk about the show and see what you thought and
sure,
stuff
absolutely.
Like that. All right.
Do you want your brand in front of the people who actually move product? Painters, finishers, and manufacturers? The Bearded Finisher podcast has pulled in over 75,000 downloads and reaches across the entire finishing supply chain, from job site to manufacturing. From single episode sponsorships to social media promotion, we offer flexible options that get your brand noticed. Real reach, real results. Visit thebeardedfinisher.com and let's get your brand front and center. Are you a residential painter buried in admin, scheduling chaos, or constant material delays? Meet mypaintbuckets.com, the first dedicated project management platform built by painters for painters. It delivers turnkey workflows to simplify your day, from project sharing and material ordering to scheduling and EPO capture, so you can focus on scaling your crew and maintaining the reputation you've worked so hard to build. And if you're a supplier, painters are evolving faster, smarter, and more efficient than ever. The suppliers who thrive over the next 10 years will be the ones who build real trust. That's why we created free tools to help you keep up and stay relevant. Head to mypaintbuckets.com and see why the next generation of painters isn't looking back.
All right, we are back at it. So like we said, first thoughts. I mean, I know what I thought and had a lot of people we talked to at the show. Like, what was your summary and thoughts of AWFS this year?
I mean, I think it's in trouble in a couple, in certain ways, right? It's gone through ups and downs. I've gone to it, for many years. And, when you look back to for instance, when the housing crash happened in 2009, and in that time, a lot of the suppliers kind of dialed it back and attendance went down and stuff like that. But then it grew and it got, going good again. It took a little bit of a hit, of course, again, with COVID and all the restrictions and stuff. But I think even that year it was still doing, I think, pretty well.
I think that was my first year going to it, was right after COVID. And I feel like it was not twice the size, but a third bigger than it was this last year.
Yeah, I think so. I would say, I would think it might have been double its size then. There's a couple big dogs in the race, right, in the marketplace. Styles and Biesse, and a couple other ones. And I think they made a decision that the cost of doing business at that show has exceeded the return, probably, or something like that. With Atlanta, IWF is the big one. That's always been, the number one show, right? And so, that's where everybody focuses, and that's where all the money is. And I think it got to the point where they've made the decision that maybe the cost benefit ratio is skewed away from it rather than towards it now. So that makes it really challenging, because if you lose the big dogs, then that just kind of deflates the sale, all the way down the food chain, right? So
yeah, I remember when I was first started doing it in the corporate side, attending as an exhibitor, there was talks about basically AWFS and IWF. Essentially, IWF was going to buy AWFS and they were going to merge it. And AWFS decided I don't know how that organization, how they sell, but they ended up saying, no, we didn't want to do it. But they, before that too long, they agreed, because both of them used to go every year. And so they finally decided, all right, we're going to go opposite, so we don't shoot each other in the foot. And then when AWFS didn't sell, and then after this year's show, I was like, oh crap, maybe they should have sold. I was like, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think if nothing else, they're probably going to have to reimagine what it is and just not try to be the smaller IWF, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but like talking to a couple people, this one, especially the show, I think both of those shows are heavily geared towards like the manufacturing, right? And the woodworking side. One thing we don't have is we don't have one, just for finishing alone. And I don't know whether there's enough, volume and if there's enough value to that or not, but maybe transition it into something that's a little bit different might be one way to survive. I don't know if it's going to be something that they're going to be able to do, just trying to be the little brother, or whatever. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just, because it's a great organization. And I mean, I really love the AWFS. So I'm not trying to be, in any way, talking down to them or saying anything bad about them. It's just the fact that, they are smaller, and that's just there's no way to sugarcoat that. But, I think maybe, there's some potential to reinvent it and maybe do something a little bit different with the event or something like that to set it apart so that it's different rather than trying to be the same but smaller. That'd be the thing I guess I would probably try to do. And and there's ways to do it. They might focus on, like I said, on finishing. Maybe they rely on like automation or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I think I think it's going to be pretty challenging for them to try to just maintain it as it is. With what there is.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. And I mean, the coatings aspect is a good way to think about it, because I mean, look at the American Coating Show or the World Coating Show that's in Germany every year. That thing is, I've never been. I mean, it's on a bucket list to go to that show, but I mean, everyone says it is like not quite twice the size of IWF, but pretty close to it. It's huge. And why don't have something like that in the US? I mean, I can't remember who I was talking to at the show. Man, it might have been, God dang it, I don't know who I was talking to, but someone had mentioned like, hey, why don't they refocus, get this thing out of Vegas, put it in Phoenix in December or January, and the show will be packed. Get it out of the summertime in one of the hottest places, move it to the wintertime to where when it rolls around, everyone's like, it's January. AWFS is coming up in Phoenix. It's going to be like 70 there. Yep, let's go. Everyone's going to go. If for nothing else, just a vacation. Was like, change it up a little bit, because I don't know. Vegas is not my jam. I could care less to go back to Vegas.
Well, I mean, and Las Vegas has their own challenges, anyways. I mean, outside of that show, I think you see it pretty frequently that it shows that visitors and attendance and stuff at Las Vegas is just down overall. So that could play into a little bit too, whether it's lost its luster or whatever else is going on. I don't know, but yeah, I think maybe a different venue might be beneficial. So
it's just gotten so expensive. Like I was there,
Yeah.
went to dinner one night and it was just me, and I got like a burger. And I didn't even get an appetizer, but I just at one of the hotels, I just got a burger and a scotch, or not even a scotch. I think it was just a bourbon, and it was like $70. And I was like, damn, like, back when I remember my dad my dad grew up in the restaurant business, and I grew up in the restaurant business. He ran pizza restaurants forever. And there was a deal in Vegas every year called Pizza Expo. And I went to him many a times to Vegas with Pizza Expo when I was in junior high and high school. And it was like, that was one of the great things about Vegas is you could go and have fun, and it wasn't crazy. You could get free tickets and you could get free meals, but like now that's gone. It's as expensive as anywhere else.
Yeah, so the all you can eat buffets for like $2 or whatever they used to have in the good old days. Yeah.
They just wanted you into the casino and gambling, but now it's just as expensive as going out to a restaurant. So it's like, well, I don't need to fly to Vegas and spend the same amount at a restaurant and lose all my money.
Yeah, and that comes, I think, with a change in hierarchy or whatever within the city too, right? I think there's been a lot of it wasn't the traditional owners that you had in the past. Now it's more like venture capital money is coming in and buying stuff and taking over, and with them, they're just interested in making money, and that's what they want to do on everything. They're trying to transactionally benefit on everything. So,
well, was there anything at the show this year that grabs your attention? Was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Did anything jump out at you?
There's always a lot of things that I see that I like and I appreciate. It's just fun, right? It's like a kid in a candy store. And of course, now I'm coming to it from a different perspective than I was when I had my own business. So I probably focus on it a little bit less. And then also, being part of the SurfPrep now, we're kind of focused internally rather than, me running out and seeing a bunch of stuff. When I was going out, it was pretty much, a lot of times it was establishing, like just saying hi to our vendors or something like that, or partners that we've had in the industry. And it's been more business than it has been kind of seeing what's out there, But I mean, there's so much technology coming out, whether it's, whether it's the new software for CNCs that's doing more and more stuff all the time. You get that kind of stuff, which is great. Sprayers, it seems like they get better and better every single show, and I think that's going to continue to flow. The booths, the flat lines and that kind of stuff. They're getting so much better and so much more technology with them, and that's where the market is trending. And then even like within our own booth now this year, we had the Cobot, which is something before all we've focused on has been kind of the manual sanding thing, and now all of a sudden we bring in this piece of equipment that kind of does that for you. And that was a leap and a kind of a quantum shift for us as well too, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, your guys' booth every year, it doesn't matter if it's AWFS, if it's All Pro, if it's IWF, like anytime you go to any show that you guys are at, the marketing that you guys put around and that Hannah and the team puts around there to get the eyeballs and the people at the booth just astounds me. I mean, more than any other booth, there's always a crowd. And I think that is amazing for SurfPrep. And you guys do an excellent job at that. But that robot this year caught so much attention. It was insane. I mean, even the video that I did, the interview that I did with Skylar and I just forgot his name. The guy that behind the robotics and the software, but I'm trying to think of how to word this. So I put that video out there, and the comments on YouTube are interesting to me because it's like, oh, I'd never let AI touch that. I mean, AI, once they get into your stuff, then they're going to steal all your stuff. And I'm just like, we're talking about sanding, dude.
Yeah. I mean, most of those conspiracy theories end up being proven true at some point, right? So, I mean, it it kind of is what it is. But I mean, when ultimately at the end of the day, the technology for me, I was like, and I hadn't seen this thing operate before the show. It's kind of like not in my wheelhouse. It's not my thing. So Skylar's been working, diligently on this, and I mean, just to get back before I go forward anymore, talking about the booth and the people around it, I will say that, Skylar and Mary and Hannah and Chad, I mean, they've done a great job of building a really loyal following. And so, it's pretty easy to come into an organization like that where you don't really have to do much because they've got this energy about the whole company that every time we're at one of these shows, the booth is constantly packed with people, and they're constantly packed by people because they come in and they understand that the whole family is just who they, when you get to meet them, they are who you think they are, right? When you see them out in the thing, you think, oh, you get this great impression. You know how it is with people that you'll see some people and you think, hey, they're really cool people. And then all of a sudden you meet them in real life and they're not the same. Right.
Yeah. They are very, I want to say original, but they're the same. It doesn't matter if they're on camera, off camera, you get a true person.
They are who they appear to be is exactly what you can say about it. So, so from that perspective, my job was pretty easy and I could see that, and it brings an appreciation to the team that's around you when you walk through the show and you take a little break and your booth slows down. So you walk over to talk to somebody. And as you walk and you scan the crowds and you see a lot of people on their phones and twiddling their thumbs. And then you look back and the business that you work for is doing really well. Right. So, I mean, that's a great thing. And like I said, it's a testament to what they've done over the years, and
a really
people. So that's been good.
Kick-ass, my favorite booth. I mean, I love that trailer booth. I just think it is the coolest, most attention-grabbing thing, and I cannot believe no one else is doing it yet. It just blows me away.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, like I said, trying to be a visionary person and always trying to think outside the box. I mean, that trailer is 100% think outside the box, right? Instead of paying the exorbitant fees for them to load and unload your stuff and wait in line to get your place in line, you've got everything there all self-contained. And, the show wraps up and a half an hour later, you hook onto your trailer and you drive out and you're done. I mean,
they want you out of, Skylar always said it was a happy accident when we talk about it.
Yes.
He's like, it was a happy accident that you're in this trailer and, they want to get you in first and get you gear out of the way. And they want to get you out first because they want that trailer out of the way for the forklift. So you're first in, first out. He's like, didn't even realize that was going to happen, but it's another huge benefit.
It is, and then the other thing too is, that trailer opens us up to the potential that, as we get a little more established and stuff like that, now we can start pulling that around and, doing demos, and we could just literally pull up anywhere and drop that thing down and do the same thing, which I think is going to be great for the future. So I look at that. Yeah, very well. But then, not to sidetrack, get back to the robot, but, getting back to the robot thing, when I looked at it, and like I said, I didn't have any experience with it at all. I had seen them at past shows and saw what they would do and stuff. And for me, I was like, okay, if this thing can sand, like, I feel I'm pretty good myself. I think I can sand, pretty well and do a good job. And so my thought was if we could get something that would sand like, 80% as good as me or something like that, I could get on board with something like that because I know that would be like probably, getting into your best sander territory, right? The best person you've got on the floor territory. And that's really what you want to look for, right? Is consistently time over time. And then when I got in there and actually saw that thing operate and how it works, it's so amazing because, just to reflect what you do or just to kind of get everybody on board with what you do with this thing. So basically, it uses AI and it uses a scanner to create the programming. So if you come from the CNC world, that when you design something in your cabinet design software, you got to tell it, the depth and the thickness of the material. Excuse me. You got to tell it about the thickness of the material, how deep you want to go. You got to set all these parameters for what you do with it. And with this, it's actually different because, like, for instance, on a shaker style door, you can set that thing on the door on there, and all you got to do is you program in your recipes. So if you've got a different sanding regimen between an MDF door and a refinished door and a stained door and whatever. If they got different grit profiles, you want to sand longer, whatever it is, there's a recipe that you create in there that tells it what it's going to do. But as soon as that recipe is established, all you literally do is put your doors up there, push a button, and it immediately scans it. It takes like a second and it goes down and it starts sanding, and it sands. And like I said, my whole thing was, I thought if that could do like 80% as good as me, then it was pretty good. But we had a door that was pre-primed, that was there that had been left over from the year before. And I saw this door get sanded 3 times. They take the pencil mark and write pencil marks all the way across the whole door, push the button, and it would sand off the pencil marks. And it would be just a white door. I saw it do that 3 times and it never sanded through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way that if you would have given me a 3x4 or a 3x7 or an orbital sander, whatever it is, there's no way that you would have given me that and pencil marked that door 3 times and had me sand that door to the accuracy that thing did. So for me, I was like, okay, this thing is the real deal, you know?
Well, and the fact that you could throw, I mean, like he did a demo for me. I can't remember. I think I may have the video and I need to get it out there. And, I think it was Skylar. They pencil marked 2 doors or 3 doors and they just set them on the tray. And then that vacuum pad, beyond that vacuum pad that's on there, is pretty badass. They just set 3 doors down there and put in the primer recipe that they develop with whoever they're working with. And that the camera that's up there, it sanded one and it had 2 sanders on there. It had the round and it had the square. It would go in, but it noticed all 3 doors and sanded one. And then it went to you didn't have to put any dimensions. You didn't have to set them up any certain way. You just set them down on that tray and it recognizes and would sand all 3 doors, and you could walk away and come back and all 3 doors are done. Just that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's 100%. That is the cool thing about it. And even to take that a step further, we did one demonstration where it sanded, it would come down, it would sand first with the orbital, and then it would go and change. And this is kind of my macro micro thing, right? So it was doing the orbital first, and then it would go over and it would blow off the dust off of that disc to keep it clean. And as it blew off that disc, somebody took and moved the door and turned it at like a 30-degree angle from where it was. And when that thing came back, it recognized that it moved, and it created the new program based on where the new position was, which, for me, that was like, okay, that's not bad.
That's crazy. That I didn't see that one. That is pretty awesome. I mean, I get that people get scared with AI and, with whole conspiracy theories, whatever, it is what it is. But like, it's just like when airlesses came out versus a pressure pot, or when pneumatic sanders came out versus hand sanding, or electric versus pneumatic. Technology is going to change. The sooner that you as a business owner, we as a business owner, or as an operator adopt these changes, it makes life easier and doesn't leave you in the dust, charging more, being less efficient, and therefore end up going out of business. I mean, I guess that's free market. That's how it works. But like, I've adopted AI, and I'm here to tell you, like, it's half terrifying, but it is amazing. Like, next level, how much more efficient it can make you just in menial task when it comes to an AI app that goes through my emails and flags what's important. And I mean, whether you're doing research or anything, it's something that I think needs to be adopted more, because it makes, and like, you got companies out there that don't want anything to do with it. And you can see the companies that are fully utilizing AI and the companies that aren't, because you can start to see a delta in efficiency. Like, I'm not saying it has to be used for everything, but I think the more, especially business owners, like, if you think about the stuff that AI can do now, would you agree that how much more efficient it can make you as a business owner when it comes to writing SOPs, or even helping you through estimates and emails and check market pricing and stuff? oh my gosh, you would be so much more efficient. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's really, AI is just the next evolution of the search engine, right? I mean, it's not thinking
100%.
anything independently. What it's doing is it's just doing a faster search than you can pay somebody to do, and it can search like instantaneously through, trillions or whatever it is of data points versus, somebody else, and I mean, we could get off on a subject, as far as AI and what it's going to do and whether now, there's any place in the world anymore for mathematicians and accountants and all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately, if it is what it is, you should not have to hire an accountant to do your taxes anymore, and you shouldn't have to do, a lot of this other stuff. And so how that disrupts the industry and it disrupts the world and what it does, that's kind of a whole different,
Yeah.
that's kind of a whole different topic. But
you got to use it correctly and learn how to use it and know when you need a person to look at it and when a robot can do it.
Right. And, ultimately what it boils down to is I'm in shops now with my job. I'm not working in my shop. I'm working in other people's shops all the time. And as I go around the country, the number one thing that you hear is, we can't find good finishers. We can't find good people. We've got work here to do and we can't do it because
labor.
We don't have the good people. So these companies are looking for a way, absent of the talent, to do it physically to get this amount of work done. And so I think, when people look at it and say, well, you don't want to do AI because it's going to take, jobs away from people. Well, the people that are implementing this kind of stuff are already suffering from a lack of labor and a lack of, being able to find somebody to do it anyways. That's why this stuff is getting worked on and invented. So, I mean, to that extent, that's not a very legitimate reason.
Well, and Skylar said in the interview when we were talking to him about it, was like, my goal is if I can put one or two of these in a shop and someone still has to operate it. Someone has to put the doors on there. Someone has to take them off. Someone has to set the recipe. But if I can put one or two of these in a shop and I can help you be more efficient. So you have to hire more cabinet builders or you have to hire more people to operate the machines. Like, it's not necessarily getting rid of jobs, but you can use it as a tool to grow your business. So you need more people. You need more people in accounting. You just have to, not look at it as taking away a job.
Yeah, it's shifting the skill sets basically.
Exactly.
You're
That's
going to
a
have
great
employees, but they're
explanation.
going to have a different skill set, right? They might have to learn to diagnose or maintain it or do whatever. But they're taking those things that used to take people and were really hard on their bodies and really kind of shorten their quality of life. And trust me, I've thrown enough sheets of plywood and breathed in enough lacquer fumes myself at my age to know where the penalty that I paid for that at this point in my life is palpable, right?
Yep.
So so anything we can do to kind of minimize that is good, I think, for the long run. So you do kind of miss the craftsmanship part of it without a doubt. But then again, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest here. We talk about craftsmen, and I mean, I think I was a pretty good cabinet maker, in my life, and I think I could do things pretty well. But I mean, when you talk about craftsmanship, we lost that so long ago it wasn't even funny anyways. And all you got to do is just walk around Europe. Like you go to the Dome in Cologne, the church in Cologne, Germany, and walk around that, and you see that they built that church before electricity was invented. And there's more craftsmanship in any 20 square foot of that building than anybody in that I know of in this country has done in their lifetime. And I think we got to be a little bit more modest in what we're talking about, because essentially we're just doing boxes and we're putting color on them. So, I mean, you can skin that cat however you want to, but I would love to be able to go back to the craftsmanship. I mean, I've got so much respect for seeing, the things that we've done and what the human race has done in its existence. Cookie cutter homes that are, built like they're built today. Unfortunately, there's just not a craftsmanship. Unfortunately, just isn't part of that equation.
I would 100% agree. Craftsmanship's gotten out of the way for speed and affordability, I guess is.
Yeah. And I mean, you can skin that cat however you want to, but there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And what's interesting at that is I can talk to my wife's grandmother is German. She was born in Germany, grew up there, and talking to her about the difference between Europe and the US on the consumer side. It's very interesting because she grew up in the time, and she still has furniture now. She's 86, 88, that was gifted to her from her mother. And it still looks phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole different dynamic too. And my grandmother was, basically a generation or so removed from the Germans too, right? And I mean, when she would talk when I was a kid, and I lived with her when my parents were divorced, and she would talk to her friends, and they were talking in German, when they're having their conversation or whatever. So, but she had a dining room table, and it was a beautiful oak dining room table. And that it kind of exemplifies the difference between now and then. I mean, with her having been born in the, she was born in 1912. So going through, the World War, both World Wars, going through the Depression, going through whatever, you didn't replace anything. You had something, and if you had it, you did it one time, and that was it. So like with that dining room table, when you walked into her house, there was coasters, there was placemats, there was a tablecloth on that table, and God help your soul if you took a glass and set it on that table without putting it on a coaster or something like that.
Yeah.
Because your back porch was going to be painted pretty red,
Yeah. You were going to be hurting.
But there's reason it wasn't because they're mean. It's because they knew that that's all they were going to have, and that thing was never going to be replaced. She wasn't going to get another one. So if that one was destroyed or wrecked or was not maintained properly, she wasn't going to have it. And that was a sign of pride for her to have that. And she knew that she was going to do whatever she needed to do to maintain that thing. And we've kind of lost that.
And they built stuff to last. It wasn't the
Yes.
And I got nothing against these the big companies, whether it. Walmart doesn't make anything, but neither. I mean, IKEA makes their stuff. You can name 100 of them, but the mindset was you bought something and you spent hard-earned, saved money, not credit, saved money on something, and it was something that was going to last you. Your expectation was 20 plus years, 30, 40 years. That was the expectation. Nowadays, it's gotten to this weird world. And Craftsmanship, I think, is right there with it, because it's gotten into this world of, oh, I'll just buy a new one next year. I don't need it to last me longer than a year. TVs, dining room tables, couches, it just got to this world of everything is disposable. Disposable consumerism is what I've heard it called. And I think that's hurt a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, so like I said, I think both of us are reminiscent for the times when we'd prefer it if it was a different way, but the market is just not realistically telling us that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they say good old days for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I mean, in kind of wrapping up, I'm trying to think how to word this. If you've got guys out there, because I've got guys that have reached out to me, messaged me, hey, I'm thinking about going a different way and getting out of the business. You did it. Like, what advice would you give to guys out there that are thinking about going into the OEM side from being going to the manufacturer side from being an owner? Anything you would tell them as a guy that's recently done it?
No, I mean, for a lot of guys, like, especially for me, it was more like, it was probably more like an age-related thing than anything. If I was 42, I never would have thought of doing this probably. I was still at that age. But when, you talk about the technology and you talk about like where the market was. And one thing I think I have been good at is being able to sit back and look at the market and see where things are headed and where which trends are going, which direction, whatnot. And that's where I looked at it. And I'd bought some equipment in my shop that was newer. And I started looking at the marketplace and what software was doing and what equipment was doing. And I looked at it, and it's like, for me to like take my business and go to another level, which was kind of like a goal of mine, that whole like barrier point to entry is shifting up so high now with the cost of things, right? You can no longer go from like, starting with it. You can't start with a table saw anymore and build a cabinet shop, except maybe in a few niche markets. But I mean, overall, I think in the country, you'd see that somebody who just wants to start building cabinets, in a garage, it's a lot harder to do. Like I said, it's not that you can't do it. And there's some areas where they have some pockets of population where you can do it. But then and then that is going to be what you're going to be too. I mean, it's, there's not going to be I'm going to take it and do this incremental thing with it. Right. So that where the market is right now with technology, with software, with all that kind of stuff, it's got such a higher entry of to market when you're going to scale, I think, than it had before. And I looked at that and I was like, at my age, what it would take for me to invest and do all that stuff and what the payback was, it didn't really seem like that was going to be beneficial to me. So that's one of the reasons I was looking at it and just saying, maybe that would be a better scenario. But ultimately, you just got to look for people that have kind of values that are the same as you, and just make sure you fit in kind of that way. And then just the kind of person you are. If you're a free thinking, free spirited person, you probably don't want to go to work for somebody who's very regimented, right? And by the same token, I think if you're a really regimented person that needs to have that, that set structure, and you want to have this way and this way, maybe you don't want to be in at the ground floor of something that's getting built, right? Because you're going to have change in plans and change in whatever's happening, over the time, and that's just a reality. So. But ultimately, you should know at least at that point that you got to generate money. And I guess that's the way I look at it with SurfPrep. I'm like, I know for my business, people that came in, they have to generate a certain amount of revenue in order for me to keep them as an employee. And so when I look at it, I'm like, I gotta create a certain amount of revenue for me to be justified for SurfPrep to give me a paycheck, right? And if I'm not doing that, and if I'm not capable of doing that, then I shouldn't be getting one, and I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And so, that's the one thing that I think, maybe as a prior business owner, that as long as you've got that understanding, it can be a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely, being a business owner, you bring a unique value to going to work for a company, which is really nice because you understand, for the most part, you understand P&Ls, you understand operating cost, that there has to be value in having someone. So you tend to want to bring at least that, but most business owners want to bring more. I want to increase my value versus what we need, because that's how you keep a job.
Yeah. And hopefully it's fun, and hopefully you enjoy the people. When I've been having quite a bit of fun. I mean, even to the just little things like, we're getting new business cards. And so we got new business cards. And then I got I can't remember if it was Mary or somebody sent me a thing saying, what's your job title? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't, I wasn't quite sure, so me with my person, with me and who I am as a person, I said, I don't know. I think I'm just put down abrasive personality on there, and we both joked about it. And then all of a sudden I get my business cards, and right on there, it says for my job title, abrasive personality on there. So, that's kind of like me. That's kind of SurfPrep. I think that's kind of how it works. Right. But
I mean, that is very fitting to, the SurfPrep as a family, as a company, and that it's just, when I first interviewed, was it Skylar? Maybe it was Chad, about the core values. I think it was Chad talking about SurfPrep's core values. And one of the core values is have fun. If you can't have fun, then why are we doing it? And I was like, man, I've never seen a corporation and use something like have fun. Like, when it all comes down to it, we got to have fun.
Yeah. And I mean, there are days, right? There are days with every company where, it might not be you might be having days, so to speak, right? But I mean, overall, at the end of the day, it's really good to have a team that has a goal of wanting to, have fun and be light on things. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Denny, man, I appreciate you jumping back on. I'm excited for this new transition that you're doing. I'm glad that you're having a blast. I had a blast in my time, and I hope you continue to have fun and keep growing with SurfPrep.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And make sure you guys are like and follow every episode. It really helps me out. And we'll see you next week.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.